Talk about this case. First of all, I want to talk about the Petitos because they were in court, Gabby Petito's mother and father, and you saw them react throughout the argument. She was wiping her tears at times. They looked at each other and shared looks when opposing counsel was making arguments on behalf of the defendants in this case. And they were there, present. And contrasting that, there was no parent present for the Laundries, Jack. The defendants were not present. First of all, did you notice the behaviors of the plaintiffs in court?
Oh, yeah. How could you miss it? I mean, you would watch this family and it would just tug at your heart. And I think even their lawyer, to his benefit, really was showing that empathy, that outrage, because there should be outrage when it comes to this. Now, obviously, this real question becomes whether or not there is a duty to act or whether or not what they did do was sufficiently outrageous. But I think what you can say undeniably is that this family is feeling true and utter anguish, without doubt, and that was really powerful as we watched it in the courtroom.
Absolutely. Do you think it was strategic that the plaintiffs were there in court and yet the defendants were not? Did it make it more or less personal for this judge as he has to render a decision?
Well, I think when we think about the Laundries not being there, I don't know if that would have had an impact one way or the other. Although, at the same time, as we were just saying, both of these families lost somebody here. But what I think that the Petito family could have done, may have done for this judge, is to say, this is not simply a legal question. I understand it is a legal question, but as a judge, you know this more than anybody, that even if you have a legal question, there are heartbeats behind it. And those heartbeats behind it give it drive that makes you hesitate, makes you slow down, makes you reconsider, because there are people out there holding their breath, waiting for an answer.
Jack, do you think this kind of lawsuit, if the Petitos prevail, if they're allowed to go to trial and then they win this case, do you think that moving forward that might cause people to do the right thing? And when they're sitting on information like this, if that's true as the Petitos allege, that they will actually share that information?
It's such a complex question, right? And you know this as you ask it. You ask it so it sounds so easy. Thanks a lot.
You're welcome. Thanks for joining, Jack.
Yeah. It's actually this, is that the real question is the right versus wrong, or is it really the question versus moral question versus the right question? Because I really think that's the distinction. One of my concerns with this from a policy perspective is, okay, let's imagine that the police haven't bothered to actually charge anybody yet. But we have people out there protecting themselves, hiring lawyers, and actually exercising their constitutional rights. And the police then go to that other family and say, well, you can always file a lawsuit. And that could actually compel them to actually come forward and say something that they have a constitutional right not to say, but civilly they may be obligated. I'm really concerned from a policy standpoint when it comes to that issue. So that issue bothers me in that sense. But what I do appreciate in this case is it highlights that distinction between no behavior versus proactive behavior, meaning you roll out, and we're gonna say this went this far, but you roll out and say some terrible, horrible thing, knowing that what you're saying is false publicly, even if you do it through an agent like a lawyer, that maybe you're going to reconsider what you do when it comes to that issue because of the anguish that it might cause. Now, that is something that I think a lot of people could get behind, because that is the anguish that we should be trying to stop.
Right. And the First Amendment, freedom of speech, it's come up in a number of different contexts, different cases that we've been covering here on Court TV. So it is an issue ripe for discussion at this time. And look, Jack, see, your problem is you answer my questions and you answer them so beautifully. That's why I know I can throw anything at you and you've got an answer. All right. You're going to stay with us.